Welcome to our official album review for Yeat's new album 2093. This is a highly anticipated album for 2024, considering the fact that Yeat has been one of the most interesting acts to follow in hip-hop in recent memory. Not only that, guys, but we did a full-blown live album reaction to 2093 with our entire community on Patreon. If you guys want to check it out, check the link in the description and check the link in the pinned comment. But Lou, let's get into this, all right? Let's dive into the artist performance. So, 2093, I mean, it's kind of an album that's kind of suggesting he's going into the future, bringing something futuristic to the table, something that he's never done before. But how do you feel about his performance overall?
Before I get into that, let me ask you, are you officially converted into a Twizzler?
Am I officially a Twizzler?
Yeah, did it happen for you?
No, I don't think I've ever been a Twizzler.
No,
but
not
you know
yet.
what? I have enjoyed previous projects from him, such as Up to Me and Co. I've gone through his discography, and
Yeah.
I was excited to go into this. Like we were saying in the live stream, I mean, if there was an album to really get hyped up for and one to really get into, especially with the marketing rollout and seeing what was being communicated through it, it was going to be this one. But if I'm being honest with you, man, his performance fell short throughout the
Absolutely,
entire
man.
album.
It really did. And like going into this, I'm not the biggest Yeat fan, but I'm always open-minded and I'm always excited to hear some bangers because he has made good music in the past. There's been singles I've enjoyed, but going into the artist performance, it was interesting to see Yeat take on longer songs in the sense of he's going more with like a traditional song structure, having a second verse a lot of the times, dragging out his choruses longer than he usually does. And I feel like he did that to sort of play into like the atmosphere of the album, but it was at the expense of him having these boring, drawn-out performances for the most of this thing. Looking at a song like, for example, Power Trip, that was a low light for me on the album just because he decides to layer these like baby background vocals in behind his own vocals, and the pitch just sounds horrible to me. Another example that I didn't like in terms of his performance was the song Breathe, where you hear him like taking these loud breaths in the background.
And not only that,
has
but
a
the way-
chipmunk voice that says, breathe.
But
like-
it's kind of the way that he ad-libs at the end of his lines as well. Another song that I wasn't a big fan of has to be Brought to Earth. I mean, it just, the problem is that if you go through the verses itself, like the song structures are a bit weird, right? Because you're going to get these songs where some of the choruses are hitting like 25 plus lines, and you get certain songs that have a traditional, let's say, Yeat format. Another thing that I didn't like about his performance is that, like you said, okay, in the past he's done it where I feel like he's been able to carry longer albums, because even if you go back to his previous release, which what I believe was Afterlife, correct? Afterlife dropped in 2023. That clocked in at 22 songs and an hour and 8 minutes. This album is almost the same length, an hour and 10 minutes, and it's 22 songs. And it kind of just gives you perspective where the artistry is at, because it feels very formulaic for his performances. These are performances that I have gotten before. And it's quite interesting because people are saying that, oh, well, this is completely revolutionary for Yeat. The artist evolution is absolutely crazy. But if you guys could just let me know in the comments section, what did he bring new to the table on this album, if I'm being honest
I
with
think
you?
a lot of people are talking about the soundscape when it comes to like him going into like never before seen territory. But yeah, overall, like you said, I feel like when it comes to the performance itself, it's sort of copy and paste in the sense that, you know, he's either giving you a deeper voice or he's giving you a higher pitched voice. He's giving you a bunch of like vocal effects throughout his performances. But the flows aren't that engaging. I feel like the hook game wasn't strong. Besides something like, for example, Run They Mouth, I found that had a bit of a catchy hook. He found a nice pocket there. That was a rare instance of a performance I did enjoy. We actually heard a snippet of that before it came out. Apart from that, a song like I Love, you had the annoying repetitive hook where he just repeats I love. And then you have a vocal sample that repeats the same thing throughout the entire track. And yeah, man, I don't like a lot of the auto-crooning on a song like 2093, for example. Like his singing is just horribly off-key.
Even a song like Keep Pushing, for example, like the repetition within the choruses, it gets really stagnant at a certain point, like the whole thing. And even at this, the song structure was super weird on this song, because you only get the chorus like 75% into the track itself, and it's literally just can't keep pushing, can't keep pushing. And it's just like, what the fuck am I listening to at a certain point, you know? And then after that, the outro is literally just riot. And it's being repeated like a good 25 times over. And I don't mind when an artist does it. It's just, it has to sound good. And
Yeah.
in this case, it didn't do well, in my opinion. I think the artist performance is bad, bro.
Yeah,
I think it was bad.
I agree with the bad performance for the artist. Sorry, the bad rating for the artist performance. But let's get into the features, because Yeat doesn't always have the most features, but people are always interested into seeing who he brings into the fold. So we had technically 3 features. We had Future, we had Lil Wayne, and then we had background vocals from Childish Gambino on the end of Power Trip, which
Yeah.
I was excited to like know what a Childish Gambino Yeat song was going to sound like, because when you look at them at face value, 2 polar opposite artists, but Gambino's presence was barely felt. Like when we did our live album reaction to it, we didn't even pick up on what song he was on.
Back on my re-listens, that's the only time that I was able to pick back up on it, and obviously Fagella let us know, that he was on the song.
It was a wasted opportunity, right?
I feel like definitely he could have had a part to play on this, but even at that, I just don't know where Childish Gambino would even fit on this soundscape. It would be such an out-of-place feature. Looking at the Wayne verse, Wayne is on Lifestyle, which is the 8th track. Pretty cool verse, pretty standard for Wayne. It's nothing absolutely incredible. It's not like a Bash Money sort of verse that you would get maybe like a couple of years ago, but still, it was nice. It was like one of the most exciting performances on the album, which was kind of needed at this point because you and I were like really drawn out, and like when you're at that track 8, you're like, holy fuck, like we're in for a ride here. And then after that, Stand on It by Yeat featuring Future. Yeah, this is another Future verse where I was like, they should have kept the original snippet, the one that surfaced online. The one that was, I believe we posted up on our Twitter, that was the verse that should have made it, and this one completely changed. Not only that, but when you go to the mixing and mastering of the verse itself, you could barely hear his vocals. So, again, I don't know what you're going to get out of the feature list on this, especially the fact that, like, you have 22 songs on this, and the fact that you literally only have 2 features on this, not considering the Childish Gambino feature. It does create for a drawn-out listen. I do wish that there was a lot more features on this.
Especially when Yeat's performances are so one-dimensional. Like, you want that break, you want that spark of something new, of something refreshing from a vocalist, which you don't really get. But speaking on Wayne, I thought that he had the best verse on the entire album. That's no bias in terms of the punchlines, in terms of the way that he's able to find the right crevices within the beat to fit himself into. Yes, he did use a flow similar to what he did on Just in Time by Jid. Even some lyrics actually repeated. So he almost gave Yeat a recycled performance and verse, if you want to
some people,
call it that.
Because some people were in the live album reaction yesterday, and they're like, are we listening to the Forever Story? And they're like, go back and go look at the Genius verse. And you guys were right yesterday in the live stream. It's low-key the exact same verse. So even at that, you're not getting much out of the feature list.
It's not the same verse exactly, but it's similar.
It's very
that
similar.
Being said, even though it was almost a copy-paste, it still ended up being probably my favorite verse on the album. Future, on the other hand, sounded sleepy at the beginning of his performance, and then he tries out a couple of different flows, and they're all right. It was just sort of a mediocre performance from him.
Do you wish that they would have kept the original one that you ended up hearing on the snippet?
The OG sounded better.
It sounded much better. So listen, I think the features were mid.
No, the features were pretty mid overall.
And like, listen, just when you look at only 2 features for a 22-song album, I know that this has been a format in the past, but it was definitely a problem for this project.
But let's go into the content. And listen, I don't think anybody goes into a Yeat album looking for lyrics. You know, you have to be a bit delusional to expect Yeat to give you these complex rhyme schemes.
Yeah, someone said it was great
yada.
because obviously we keep Genius open while we listen to the album, right? Just to see, just song structure. Like, I want to know what kind of chorus I'm listening to. Like, I just want to know, right? Like, it's basic, music shit, right? Like,
not only that, but you want to like learn about like the artist or maybe the character they're portraying or whatever it is. You want to learn about them, right?
Because not only that, but Yeat in the past has also like kind of developed his own language to a certain extent, especially stylistically throughout other projects. But dude, like, this is like the most empty album I've ever been through.
Oh, absolutely. And the major takeaways are Yeat has an infinite amount of money. He likes to take a lot of substances, and he's the CEO. So,
and he asked Elon Musk to pick him up.
Yeah, quotables like, I'm a pandemic, always on the news, or pissing on this beat, it's like a bathroom stall. The worst part to me is that you'll actually find instances where he'll repeat the exact same lines on the same album. Yeah. For example, I got condos on the moon. That was an example of like I literally heard that line on more than one song on the same album.
Yeah, I can't listen to no music. I can't fucking stand it. Pop so many X pills. I don't know how I'm standing.
But that's what I'm trying to say is that it's like I'm not expecting phenomenal writing, but it's like don't repeat the same lines over again, and I don't know, maybe try to
do something.
Try to say something different, There's also like there was 2 songs in a row where he made like these random Drake references, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with
the All the Blur tour. That's what I'm trying to say though, is that okay, if you don't want me to look at the content matter, I get it, I understand it. It's Yeat. We're obviously not going to judge this like a Kendrick Lamar album, but at the same time, it is the forefront of the fucking album. Like there's a load of
He is
writing on
speaking.
this. There's a load of content on this album.
He is dropping words
You're
into the
getting
mic.
verses with like 36 plus lines. I mean, you're not getting just like some simple Playboy Cardi ad libs and some mood music. No,
But that being said, like I would assess, like I wouldn't, I guess, value content as much as other categories. Like when I'm putting together my overall rating, the content weighs a bit less for me when it comes to a Yeat album.
yeah, but it's still bad.
It's still bad. It's awful.
Yeah, the content is bad, if we're being completely honest with you. But let's get into the production. So, listen, this was like going to be like the last saving grace of the album for me. I was going to go into the production, and I'm like, fuck, okay, we got some Benny X in here. We got some stellar producers. But man, I am disappointed. I am absolutely disappointed. And like, I don't care how advanced, quote unquote, this album sounds. When I'm hearing white noise and static throughout the entire album, it's gonna completely disengage me. I'm just being honest.
Yeah,
like,
it literally sounds like you're trying to find like a working channel on your 1996 Sony TV. Like that's what it sounds like. And it's just pure static. And was that intentional? Maybe, because sometimes the static bleeds into his vocals, sometimes it bleeds into the production, but it's literally unlistenable.
Okay, so for people that are gonna get into the comment sections and ask us, what do we know about mixing and mastering? I want to say this. Let's say you go to a restaurant, right, and you order, like, let's say a dish, and it's missing salt. You're going to say it's missing salt. You're not a fucking chef, but you know what a dish is missing salt or not. With this situation, I know what the fuck I'm listening to.
Absolutely.
And when I could barely hear vocals, when I'm getting white noise, when these distorted 808s are bleeding out of my fucking headphones, like, I definitely know what's going on, and it does not make for a pleasant listening experience. You can have all the bells and whistles. You can have these crazy synthesizers, excuse me. You can have this dark-ass production. It could feel like I'm in Arkham City. I don't care, bro. I really don't care. When the mixing and mastering on the album is not finished, it just shows that it's an incomplete project.
Absolutely, but I do like the approach, or the idea at least, of him sort of trying to create a soundscape that has this dystopian, electronic, futuristic sound. You do have some glimpses of decent production, for example, on a song like Breathe, where you have the distorted bass, some racing synth sounds, which could have sounded really good if he toned down the volume on the instrumental itself. And again, that was another beat that was wasted by the static sound.
Do you think it's just basically like the kind of like target audience that this album is marketed to, where like everything is just kind of blown up? It feels very grandiose.
But look at Yeezus, for example, or a Whole Lotta Red. You had a bunch of distorted bass and distorted drums, and it didn't end up clipping the actual production itself, or sort of over bloating everything and sort of consuming the beat as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you're getting here. An interesting beat was on Bought the Earth, where we have some violins, a super chill vocal sample. But again, it's ruined by the mix on Yeat's vocals. Yeah. So like, anytime that there's a bit of a silver lining on a production, there's something else that sort of works against it. And that's another thing I feel about this album, is that it's the most synths and pianos that Yeat has ever used, and that was cool. But at the end of the day, it's like, a lot of the elements and instruments and sounds on their own sound good, but the way they were composed and placed together was not working out, bro. Like, they were conflicting each other, a lot of the sounds.
Absolutely. Not only that, but Yeat's vocals are kind of used as an instrument as itself, right? Within a lot of these different instrumentals. And to be honest with you, they just didn't blend well with the cadences or the types of performances that he was bringing to the table on this album. I think the production was mid.
The production was mid.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, these are standalone beats, though. There's a lot of fire on this. But I mean, just like, if they were mixed properly, maybe if a different artist was using them, it definitely has to change. But where are we at next?
Replay value. These songs are really drawn out. Like I said, I don't think even Yeat's biggest fans probably want to hear him, rap for 4 to 5 minutes. It's too long. And to be honest with you, as I've said before, there are Yeat songs that I go back to here and there, and will enjoy from time to time. Not often, but from time to time. With this album, I don't see myself really going into anything. And like, even besides my own personal taste, like, for me, there's maybe 3 decent songs. Like, unbiased.
That's and that's being generous with it, if I'm being honest with you. And you know what? I don't have a problem with long albums from Yeat, because I liked Afterlife, and it was low-key the same runtime. But with this, where there's like every single song almost feels like a copy-paste performance, I have a hard time getting into it. Not only that, but I'm not trying to spend an hour and like close to an hour and a half on a Yeat album. You know, it's kind of rough to get into if I'm being completely
Well,
honest
we know
with
what
you.
the play is there. It's
Yeah,
just to boost the streams and
yeah,
whatever else, and
but I
it's
don't care about that. You
it's
know, yeah,
2024.
but whatever it
We
is,
know
you
what
know,
it is. I'm just
absolutely.
saying he's not designing it to be a full album experience.
Well, I know, but we're doing an album review.
Oh, I know.
And when it comes together for an album, you're dropping an album. You're not dropping a playlist, right? And that's just a complaint of mine. If I'm not into it, I'm not into it.
Bad.
Yeah, the replay
Bad
value,
rating.
the replay value is bad. So listen, overall, I guess you guys know where I'm going with my overall score. I don't have much to say about the track list. I wasn't a big fan of the production. I feel like there's a lot of mixing and mastering issues. Yes, I do feel like it felt like very grandiose, like you were saying. There's a lot of like piano ballads, and there was these crazy synthesizers, but they just didn't come together nicely for the track list. Also, Yeat's performances all the way throughout get very static. You're getting the same content matter over and over and over again. It's a very long album. I think it's a bad album, if I'm being completely honest here.
Yeah, and honestly speaking, I just feel like I'm not always a big fan of that complaint people have with albums where they say, oh, every song sounds the same. But you can sort of apply that logic here where not every single song sounds identical from one to the next, but the strategy or the motive going into every song relatively stays the same from track to track. There were a couple of instances where I appreciated a couple of song transitions. There was maybe a bit of intention regarding that aspect of the album, but even that was a bit minimal. As you said, I think Yeat's performances, his output, the curation of it all, it fell flat.
It fell flat
And there was
everywhere.
no evolution. This is not a revolutionary album from Yeat. To me, he didn't upgrade his sound in any way. But guys, listen, those are our opinions. I'm sure a lot of you guys loved it, and I hope that you guys got some enjoyment out of it. But let us know, how would you rate this album based on our scale? Drop it down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and be sure to tap the notification bell or smash the subscribe button if you're new here, because we have more album reviews on the way. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you soon. Peace.